So, Montreal, Washington, New Jersey, maybe Los Angeles? Hey, what about Winnipeg? We have ourselves a free agent to be technically is currently a free agent right now that has been making headlines across the hockey world because, man, if this guy actually comes back to the NHL, then boy, oh boy, we're gonna have ourselves a story here. Let's talk today about Ilya Kovalchuk. And yes, Ilya Kovalchuk, man, this is our topic today because, as we all kind of know, the historical career of Ilya Kovalchuk has been quite decorated. Drafted as the first overall pick all the way back like 20 years ago, he was a guy that made himself a home at the NHL level as a star. 50 goals, 90 points. He did all this stuff with the Atlanta Thrashers. Eventually going over to New Jersey, he had his little stint there, was a point-per-game player when they went over to the Stanley Cup Finals. And then he did the thing that a lot of people in New Jersey still haven't forgiven him for. He left, he went over to the KHL, he spent some time over there, and in 2018-19 returned to the NHL with the LA Kings. He had 34 points in 64 games played back then as what was a 36-year-old winger, 6'3", 223 pounds, known for his speed and his shot and all that stuff. Eventually, after he got terminated by the Los Angeles Kings in 2019-20, he signed with the Montreal Canadiens, where he was seen as a fan favorite. The status of this guy in front of a crowd of hockey fans that were so deep into this sport. He came over to a hockey town, he was treated like a celebrity, and just the overall mojo, the swag that Ilya Kovalchuk carried in Montreal allowed him to produce at a pretty sustainable rate. 13 points, 22 games played. He was seen as a mentor for Nick Suzuki, a rookie in the NHL, who actually is pretty good today. Kovalchuk was a big part in the short stint that he had here towards developing Nick Suzuki, and eventually when the Canadiens traded him to the Capitals for a draft pick, he got himself 4 points in 7 games before suiting up in the playoffs. He had 1 point in 8 games, and that was it. However, as a free agent in last year's NHL offseason, we had a whole bunch of speculation as to where Kovalchuk would re-sign. He was 37 years old. Obviously, he wasn't the same 90-point, 50-goal guy he was before, but as a potential depth signing in the NHL, this kind of guy could be, not saying he would be, but he could be a pretty nice addition to any roster. And with all the positive stuff coming out about the Montreal Canadiens and how Kovalchuk loved playing in this city and how he loved the fan support and all that stuff, there was a lot of speculation as to whether or not Kovalchuk would come back to Montreal. However, we also had other speculation. Oh, the Red Wings, they want Kovalchuk and all these other teams, etc. But eventually, nothing happened. Kovalchuk did not sign with an NHL club. In fact, he went back over to the KHL again. Signing with the Avangard Omsk was over a point per game in the 16 games he had in the KHL in the regular season with Avangard. But in the playoffs, things got a little bit weird, because in the first 4 games of the KHL playoffs this season, Ilya Kovalchuk had himself 5 points. 2 points in Game 4 against Avtomobilis, and a point each in Games 1, 2, and 3. After the first 4 games, though, where he had 5 points, he ended up with a nice stat line of 4 points in the remaining 20 games played. I don't know what happened. I wasn't watching the KHL playoffs all too much, personally speaking, and when I was mostly watching SKA St. Petersburg for Vasily Podkolzin, but Avangard Omsk played 20 more games. Kovalchuk had 4 points, ending off his 2021 playoffs with Avangard with a total stat line of 9 points in 24 games. They won the championship. Kovalchuk was wearing the C in the final games over there. He was celebrating with a trophy and all that awesome stuff over there for Kovalchuk. But things got interesting, because immediately after the championship was won, Ilya Kovalchuk and the Avangard Omsk mutually agreed to terminate his contract. Avangard mentioned that the reason they agreed to terminate the contract was that Kovalchuk was planning to return to the NHL next year. They hadn't specified whether he already had an offer or if he just wanted to be free of commitment in order to explore his options, but hey, Kovalchuk is a free agent again, and now, with a KHL title under his belt, he will probably be heading over to the NHL. And, all of the Habs fans that keep up with this YouTube channel are all kind of saying to themselves the same thing. Hey, what can go wrong? Because when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens, I'm going to make this a Canadiens angle right here because I know we have a lot of Habs fans here checking it out. The biggest problem for the Canadiens as of the past few weeks has been goal scoring. And aside from yesterday's game against Winnipeg, which was really good by the way, aside from that, the majority of the goals that we have seen from the Canadiens have been off the sticks of the big three. Anderson, Perry, Toffoli. These guys, I said they're the untouchables of the squad because they're the guys going out there making the clutch plays, scoring goals, and doing what needs to be done to win hockey games. Everybody else, yeah, they're cool. But outside of Toffoli, Anderson, and Perry, the Canadiens have a severe offensive generation problem. Now, as I said yesterday, that was kind of different, but hey, that's in general. So, if you're taking a look at an Ilya Kovalchuk and he's like, okay, I just won myself a KHL championship, I'm coming back to the NHL as a 38-year-old, I'm going to accept a $700,000 deal, just get me into an NHL locker room ASAP. Do you go out there and try to sign this guy again? We already know the positive impact he had in the Canadiens' locker room and on the ice when he was here last time, so if he's going to go out there willing to accept a cheap deal, do you say yes to that? Or do you say no because there's no more room? Do you say, okay, we now have Caulfield, we might bring back Perry, who knows what happens with Eric Stahl? Do we even have the room for a Kovalchuk? Is he just going to be another one of these Michael Frolik guys who doesn't get a chance to play the entire year? Or can he be that other version of Corey Perry? Can he be the same impact presence that he was before, winning overtime games and setting up Nick Suzuki like crazy? Is that something you see value in? And if it is, I want you to tell me in the comment section below, would you like to see Kovalchuk back in Montreal? And just for the sake of going over other teams, hey, if you're a Kings fan, you take a look at the NHL standings right now and you see that the LA Kings are not really doing all too hot. I mean, they're just outside the bubble there. 44 points in 48 games played. They have some really interesting things to cheer about. Gabe Vilardi through the legs passes, magnifique. But if you're a Kings team and you're like, hey, we've got all these young guys coming in here, Byfield's already made his debut, we might see a full-on resurgence in the lineup of youth with guys like Byfield, Turcotte, Vilardi, maybe Akil Thomas, maybe Jared Anderson-Dolan plays himself higher into the lineup, who knows? Do you want that veteran presence in there in Kovalchuk, a guy who literally was a King before and honestly wasn't terrible in his first season in LA, and a guy who has himself that KHL championship experience? Now, I know KHL championship experience, it's not the same as Stanley Cup championship caliber experience, but still, experience is experience. He knows how to win. So, if he's going out there accepting cheap deals, do you bring him back to LA where he can be seen as one of the veteran guys in your squad? Furthermore, if you're a Washington Capitals fan and you're saying, okay, Kovalchuk's available, do we want to reunite the Russian machine with Orlov, Kuznetsov, Samsonov, Ovechkin? Hopefully he produces like he did back in the regular season, 4 points in 7 games played, and hopefully the Russian machine as a whole, they stay away from the hotel rooms because, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I know New Jersey fans probably would not like to see Kovalchuk anywhere near their hockey team anymore because of the impact he had when he left the first time. That was certainly not great, but I mean, old wounds die hard. Is that how the saying goes? Is there even a saying like that? I don't think so. But still, just because Kovalchuk is indeed linked to the New Jersey Devils, I don't think they would actually want this kind of guy, just because of the history right there. Again, leadership presence. You've got some young guys on the roster. Ty Smith is really good. I like Jack Hughes. I like Igor Sharangovich. Very good players over there. Not to mention the addition of Foote is one that I like a lot. He was one of the better WHL goal scorers for the Kelowna Rockets back when he was over there. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could try to get that Kovalchuk in there and say, okay, you want to be a goal scorer, right, Foote? Hang out with this Ilya Kovalchuk guy and he'll show you all the reins of being a goal scorer in this league. Whether or not you see value in that, again, that's your prerogative. I don't really know if that's anything that any Devils fan would actually see value in, but hey, if it is, then tell me in the comment section below so I can get that message across, I guess. And so if you're a fan of any of the teams we talked about here, LA, Montreal, Washington, New Jersey, I guess we said Winnipeg, but that doesn't really count. If you're a fan of any of these teams, tell me in the comments, would you want Kovalchuk to come back to your squad? If it's for a league minimum, 1-year deal where he has the cards in his hands and you guys are just looking for some depth, would there be value in a signing like this? And hey, if you're a fan of any other team, feel free to let me know in the comments if you would want this kind of guy too. He's coming fresh off of a KHL championship in a weird playoff run where he was the captain, but he had 4 points in his last 20 games, so that's kind of weird, to be honest. But either way, let me know in the comments what you think about Ilya Kovalchuk and whether or not he should come back to your squad. I hope you enjoyed this video. Ash Wilson 99. and bye.